All right, so we're just at about 10:02, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you are all very, very busy people, and I think now more than ever, it's actually worth celebrating that busyness a bit more than where we were a year ago. So things are looking very different. So hopefully business is picking back up for you all. Let's see. Just a bit of housekeeping for everybody. All audience members are muted and cameras are set to off, except for our panelists this morning. The Q&A feature is open to the audience, and we will be dedicating time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions. So use that feature to send us your questions that come up. If we do run out of time and cannot get to your question, we will certainly work to answer you offline. This call is being recorded, but again, all audience cameras will be off. I would like to mention too that we have a channel where we will have a live translation of the webinar in Spanish. So if that is helpful, please switch over to that channel by clicking the globe symbol down below and selecting Spanish. We're also going to work to have that recorded as a shareable resource for later too. So here is a quick breakdown of our call today. We will begin by hearing from economic development, and then we will be exploring the journey of compliance with the new additions to the current ordinance. We will then talk about the benefits of going beyond disposable items. And lastly, before questions, we will hear from a couple of local vendors who can ease you through any transitions you may be making. So here is the city staff we've got on our call today. So we've got Amanda Rotella of Economic Development, who will be our question moderator later on. We've got Nathan Q, Economic Development Coordinator, who will be talking to us a little bit about economic development. And then Peter Bashir, who is our Spanish translator. And then we've got Leslie O'Malley, the Waste Reduction Program Manager, who will be here to answer questions and talk a little bit about the ordinance. And then myself, Kaylee, Waste Reduction Assistant, who will be taking us through a majority of this presentation. So with that being said, I also really do want to recognize on behalf of all of us that it really has been a tough year for everybody. And so I want to thank you all for dedicating some of your time to be here today. And in case anyone on the call did not already know, City Council did actually vote to extend the enforcement date of these updates to the ordinance. So originally changes would have already gone into effect, but now the enforcement date has been extended to March 9th of 2022. And while this date will come up much quicker than I think we can all foresee, hopefully you're able to use this added time to move into compliance, ask us questions, and feel comfortable and ready when March is here. So thanks again, and please, stay in touch. Waste reduction staff is certainly here as a resource for you. So getting on to sort of the meat of this conversation, I'd like to turn it over to Nathan Q to touch on economic development support and role as a resource in the transition to your compliance. So Nathan.
Hi, thanks, Kaylee. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Again, my name is Nathan Q with Economic Development. I am the Economic Development Coordinator with the City of Santa Cruz. Over in the city, we have 4 divisions within our department. It's arts development, housing development, infrastructure and property, and business development, where I work at. Next slide, please. Over in business development, we primarily focus as a team on helping business owners navigate the business licensing and permitting process. Additionally, we also help coordinate technical assistance and resources to business owners. Additionally, we also develop initiatives and new programs to help support the business community. Our most recent initiative is the Temporary Outdoor Expansion Program, where we've helped business owners expand into their frontage to be able to operate and increase capacity during the economic realities of COVID-19. We've been very successful at this program, and we've helped over 100 participants. And it's programs like this that we're very excited to roll out to you in the future. Next slide. Now, to be able to stay in touch, I highly encourage you to check out our website, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media. You can even scan the QR code there at the bottom. It'll take you directly to us. And there you will find out our latest developments and updates that we'll be pushing out periodically to let you know the newest developments within the city, within the department, and ordinances such as this. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We know times like this are challenging, but we're here for you and we're happy to assist. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Kaylee, where she's going to talk a little bit about how this ordinance came about, where we are today, and how we're going to transition successfully in the future.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, it certainly helps to have everyone involved and sort of on board with what's going on, no matter what, the changes or developments are within the city. So glad to have everybody a part of the team. So as we know, and as Nathan mentioned, there can be both local ordinances like this one, as well as statewide mandates that pertain to all businesses in the whole state of California. So I wanted to spend just a couple moments talking about some state policy that the waste reduction staff is here to support you through as well. So starting with AB 341, which has been in place since 2012, requires that businesses who generate 4 or more cubic yards of waste per week must have recycling. This is something we are all very used to now, and some of you are likely also aware that food has also become part of the picture as well. So AB 827 requires that as of last year, a recycling bin, a food collection bin, and a trash bin must always be placed next to each other at all waste stations. So there's a quick image here on the slide. You can see there's an organics, blue recycling, and the black trash. That's what that looks like for you. And then lastly, we've got SB 1383, which was passed with a specific goal in mind of 75% diversion of organics by 2025 relative to diversion rates on record in 2014. This Senate bill also aims at recovering 20% of all edible food in California by 2025. And I mention these because you have an important role as a business and opportunity to play in these environmentally driven goals put out by our beautiful state of California. So now moving back to the subject more of today's topic, that is our local ordinance about environmentally acceptable food packaging. So to start us off, it is probably appropriate to mention a quick timeline of foodware ordinances from the past up until now. So in 2008, city staff formalized a ban on all polystyrene food service items and required all to-go-ware to be biodegradable, compostable, or recyclable in the city's waste program. And more recently, in 2017, which is the current ordinance that all of you are already in compliance with, additions were made that required providers to give accessories like straws, lids, cutlery, and sauce packs upon request for to-go orders. Additionally, items still needed to be biodegradable, compostable, or recyclable in the city's program, which would also currently include what many of you are probably using, which is the BPI certified PLA products. I'd like to mention too that in 2019, a statewide ban on giving straws without request in a full dining service restaurant was passed, hence the asterisk there on straws in this timeline. And when the 2017 changes were passed, a 25-cent charge was encouraged for takeout cups, as well as a credit for customers bringing their own reusable cups. This is all part of the language of that 2017. Since you are already compliant with those 2017 additions, you know that there are vendors in the region who work hard to supply exactly what you need. So certainly don't hesitate to start communicating with them as well about new product needs. I personally have also been working to contact local vendors, letting them know of this upcoming ordinance as well. So I hope to continue to have that sort of communication where everyone is part of the discussion so that there's a sort of feedback loop, right, for all of us to work with. So now moving on to the most recent additions or changes that will go into effect again on March 9th of 2022. We'll dig deeper into each point, but I just want to give an overview to start. So essentially it is one, that accessories must only be provided upon request now across all platforms. The upon request is already part of the 2017 ordinance language, but it has been modified to include all ordering platforms such as online and third-party ordering apps, for example. Second update is the materials change. So all materials must be fiber-based and certified free of intentionally added PFAS chemicals. And I'll be defining what PFAS chemicals are in a bit, but the certification that products have is required to be by BPI or other third-party organization who certifies items free of intentionally added PFAS. The third point or change is the required 25-cent cup charge for any hot or cold beverages sold. And yes, this quarter does go back to the business to help offset expenses such as purchasing disposables or disposing of items in general. And then lastly, it's important to remember that this ordinance applies to all food that is made and or packaged in the city of Santa Cruz, with really the only exclusion being raw butcher meat and seafood from a butcher case. So that's a quick overview for us all to get on the same page regarding the what of this ordinance. So what about the why? Well, while there is a materials change, these items, of course, will not go into the recycling cart, nor will they be accepted in our organics processing program. And of course, ideally, we'd like that material to end up being disposed of properly. But the truth is, some escapes into the environment as litter. So knowing that this material will be one of the less toxic options for our environment. And I'm sure, as we've moved through the pandemic, lots of you have seen just the extent of extra trash everywhere. So additionally, new information also indicates that currently allowable PLA-based disposables do not behave any differently in the marine environment than regular petroleum-based disposables. So we want to recognize that and take action, especially living right along the ocean like we do. The accessories upon request, as I'm sure you have noticed around town, has a huge impact on the amount of potential litter and waste generated. So extending this portion to address all platforms will also further reduce this source of trash. And we also, want to be prepared in the event that infrastructure to compost these items was made available in the future. So now, as I mentioned, I'll go a little bit deeper into each of the changes. So starting with the first one, accessories upon request across all ordering platforms. With call-in orders drastically increasing, it's important to train staff to ask customers if they need accessories or train them to leave them out altogether. Many ordering apps now have an opt-in toggle that you need to select in order to get accessories. And we have developed this image to be utilized in your business to help customers understand this idea of skipping the stuff. And if you think you would like a copy of this to hang in your business, please answer yes in the survey at the end of this call, and we'll work on helping out with that. This part of the ordinance makes so much sense from an economic standpoint because, of course, it will save the money that otherwise goes to purchasing accessories that are often unused anyways and end up filling that junk drawer in the kitchen or worse, littered on the ground without ever even being used. And to that note, I'd also like to add that according to Upstream Solutions, food service disposables such as cups, food containers, and utensils are consistently in the top 10 items found in litter cleanup efforts. And in the Bay Area, 67% of litter is made up of these items. So let's not add any more to that, right? And I don't know about how you all feel, but I think too, if litter is on the street with the business's name on it, it's probably not necessarily the look the business is looking to promote. So save yourself some money and only give accessories upon request across all your ordering platforms. So next, I'll talk about that materials change. So just to revisit, single-use items must be fiber-based and BPI or other third-party certified as being free of that intentionally added PFAS chemical. This would exclude items made entirely from one material, like a paper straw or wooden utensil, for example. But this also means that PLA, which are those bioplastics that we talked about earlier, or any petroleum-based plastics for that matter, will no longer be acceptable. And I really want to emphasize this point. Plastic and bioplastic is forever 86 for those of you who know restaurant lingo. Our city website does offer a list of vendors who can supply alternative compliant items for you. And yes, there's even a paper cold cup that complies, that works great. And it's actually on average about 20% cheaper than the PLA plastic. And, just like we all got used to bringing our own bag to the store, I think, and I know that we can all get used to a paper cup for our iced coffee. So it's an easy transition, that part. And so you may be wondering what that PFAS bit is that I keep mentioning. Well, according to the EPA, PFAS chemicals are a group of man-made chemicals that are very persistent in the environment and in the human body, meaning they do not break down and they can accumulate over time. One of the uses of these chemicals is to impart grease and moisture resistance. So this is why it can be found on foodware. The EPA also states that there is evidence that exposure to PFAS chemicals can lead to adverse human health effects. And for this reason, the FDA has actually regulated and researches PFAS levels found in human contact items to ensure levels don't become highly toxic to humans. So, going back to the why of this ordinance, of course, we want to mitigate these toxic chemicals in our environment wherever possible. And the certifying organization, BPI, that I mentioned earlier, does just this. So that is why this language is part of the ordinance as well. Just look for that BPI logo and you will know it has been certified. I do also want to mention here to beware of counterfeit items. Essentially, all materials should have a BPI marking or at least the name of the manufacturer. And actually, it is newly required by the BPI organization to have that BPI logo if the product is certified. So hopefully it will be very easy to spot what is actually certified as we get through to these newer products. Additionally, we have seen some products with no brands, like the soup cup here in the middle that just says compostable with no other markings. And in terms of those fiber-based items like the brown box on the right, there are no manufacturers that I currently know of that are free of PFAS that have zero markings. So if there is not a marking on or a manufacturer marking on these types of boxes, it unfortunately likely has PFAS. So just something to look out for. And if you want to do a test yourself, there is actually this quick olive oil test you can try, which is depicted here in this slide. Basically, if the oil beads, it could be an indication of added PFAS, while soaking and spreading can show that there is no or low added PFAS. These results from this study are still being researched, but it was put out by a group in the UK as a quick way to try and test for this chemical. And if you would like more information on this, we can send out a resource with some more information, but just something to try in the meantime. So the last point of the changes that will go into effect is the required 25-cent cup charge. And to reiterate, this does in fact go right back to you, the business, the intention being that it is to help offset the cost of purchasing compliant materials, durable ware, or disposal of your disposable items. So businesses are encouraged to charge really for any of their to-go-ware items to help offset the cost of the single-use products, but the cup is where the requirement comes in. This ideally also encourages customers to bring their own durable cups or containers, that is, to avoid that cost, right? So studies have shown that even just a 25-cent cup charge highly increases the likelihood of customers bringing in their own cup. So that's great news. It definitely works for me. And knowing that, I'd also like to provide you with a little more background about the obvious next questions, right? Which is the cost savings and safety of durable or reusable items. So to go into the cost savings a bit, there are plenty of case studies showing how much businesses have saved by transitioning to durable materials. According to a foodware policy toolkit published by the Surfrider Foundation in 2020, of the over 300 restaurants who participated in a program by the organization Rethink Disposables, not one restaurant lost money, even when they had to install a dishwasher. So hopefully that's an encouraging statistic to start off with. So this slide here shows some numbers taken from the same Rethink Disposable organization that shows some of the big savings numbers from their projects. So as you can see, JJ Hawaiian here on the left invested $557 in different durable materials and saw an annual net savings of over $20,500. And that's huge. Even just starting with switching one material over can make an impact and lead to more and more transitions as the business gains comfortability with a system for those durables. And then here's just another specific case study from University of San Francisco. And I'd like to just highlight one example on this table, and that is by reducing disposable utensils. The school was able to save over $67,000 in only a year. Additionally, I think it's worth noting that to implement all of this, no additional staff was needed to handle the increase in cleaning up durable materials and et cetera. So lots of information out there to show the upsides of durables. And again, reach out to us if you're interested in pursuing more durables, and we can certainly direct you and help you out with a program. And then this next slide, it just shows some of the restaurants in California that have made the switch to more durables. And I don't know about you, but I definitely think it just kind of looks and feels nicer to eat off real dishware. Especially, if you have customers dining in, you may as well do durables. And by incorporating these, it certainly could and would probably boost consumer perception and loyalty, especially again here in Santa Cruz. And then this is just the last slide on some additional ways that durables can lead to cost savings. Single-use items cost money to buy, but also to dispose of. So if all of a sudden you have less trash, that could mean lower garbage collection rates over time, right? If you're really able to reduce the amount of waste you're producing. Additionally, employees won't have to spend as much time emptying an overflowing trash cart, which doesn't look very nice anyways, which also makes a point for customer perception, right? With durables available, you may attract more customers, especially again here in Santa Cruz, where environmental consideration is so important to us as a community anyways. It's something that's really woven into the fabric of Santa Cruz. So why not keep that for our locals, as well as use the opportunity to show our tourists that come to Santa Cruz what we're really all about and what we stand for as a community living in this coastal city. So lots and lots of upsides of benefits there and how you can save money with durables. So the obvious next question is, well, what about the safety, right? Especially during this time of the pandemic. So I would like to invite the Waste Reduction Program Manager, Leslie O'Malley, to talk to you a bit about that. Leslie?
Hi, thanks, Kaylee. Yeah, that's been a frequent question on our mind, hasn't it? Especially during COVID. Based on the best available science and guidance from public health professionals, it's clear that reusable bags and foodware can be safely used by employing hygienic practices. Initially during COVID, we all stepped back out of an abundance of caution, which was definitely the right thing to do. But as we progressed through this and they've learned more about it, the concern is shifted a little bit, and understanding that it's not so much on surfaces and we can use good practices. There are a variety of organizations working on this issue of plastics in the environment. Kaylee mentioned Upstream Solutions, Surfrider Foundation. These groups are incorporating policy change, education, and strategies to implement best practices to reduce packaging, especially hard or non-recyclable plastic. We had hoped to have a speaker join us from Upstream Solutions, Miriam Gordon, but she is unavailable. We've incorporated a video from her, but also some other resources throughout this presentation.
According to national and international health agencies, including the Center for Disease Control, the virus spreads from person to person, most commonly during close contact and sometimes by airborne transmission of aerosolized droplets, but not by contact with contaminated surfaces. Generally, masks and hand washing offer enough protection. In February of this year, the acting secretaries of the USDA and the FDA stated that during the year of COVID-19, with over 100 million cases of COVID worldwide, there hasn't been any epidemiological evidence of food or food packaging as the source of coronavirus transmission to humans.
Excellent. So I think that really explains it. In this, we're still learning about this, but there's just more and more science that says we can safely find our way back to either allowing customers to bring their own cups or incorporating swap schemes, as we'll talk about in the next slide. Go ahead. So legal protections, this question comes up a lot. There's recent legislation, AB 619, that expands some information that's already been in practice. If you are a restaurant, you no doubt have been passed by the health department in making sure that your sanitation practices are appropriate with temperatures and practices and protocols. And so AB 619 explicitly allows reusable cups containers to be filled or refilled by either the owner operator of a food facility or the consumer. We have put an AB 619 question and answer sheet on our website at cityofsantacruz.com/to-go, where you'll find more information. And our staff is available to help you develop your own personal protocol, which is just really one of the essential things that you need to have something in writing to illustrate what you're doing to practice those hygienic practices. And we're starting to see a return to BYO. Remember when they stopped allowing any plastic bags or customer bags in the stores, governor had an executive order, and now that's come back, and we're seeing the allowing of us being able to use our own shopping bags once again. Some cafes have already returned to allowing customers to bring in their own coffee cups to filling for coffee beverages, and they've enlisted safety practices with that. And just keep in mind that customers are allowed to bring their own container if they're having dine-in and they want to take their leftovers as opposed to taking a to-go box. So as long as they feel that, there's absolutely no problem with that. And then there's also an emerging very quickly, which is great news, cup and container swap systems. There's a company, VesselWorks, Dispatch, Recup, Starbucks is working with a pilot. And the city is exploring options to join a third-party vendor to do a pilot here in the city along a corridor that we could have a cup or container swap system. And then that would take the question of disposable, what's it made out of the equation, but also people wouldn't have to carry around their own cups or containers. Let's see, next slide. So this is a very brief video we'd like to show you. We included it in the link in our outreach information, but I think it so just perfectly illustrates a really easy and great way that if you're a business that serves coffee, you can get back to allowing customer cups comfortably. This is the contactless coffee campaign. Oh, you got to take yourself off mute. As easy as that. So we look to partner with local cafes who would like to adopt the contactless coffee campaign. We can get a window clean going saying I participate, but then that just ensures that you and your employees feel comfortable having a process and protocol in place to accept customer cups, and it lets our residents know that they can start feeling comfortable about bringing their cups back. So I know there'll probably be more questions about safety in the Q&A, and we're happy to answer. And as Kaylee mentioned, keep in mind, waste reduction staff is here to answer any of your questions. We can help you develop strategies and protocols, and we're here to support you through this transition.
Great. Thanks, Leslie, for sharing that. So, moving back to when we do need to purchase those disposable items, excuse me there. I would like to welcome our vendors that we've got today. So here to talk a bit more about your to-goer options. are our vendors for this morning. So we have with us Alonso from Coast Paper and Matt Cloutier with Ledyard Performance Foods. They're here to showcase their products and offer you some insight about what they have and will be offering as we do get closer to that March date. So thank you both for being here today. And Alonso, I will turn it over to you first.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. This is Alonso Ortega. I work for Coast Paper and Supply, our local company here in Santa Cruz. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have heard of us already. But, we'll get to it a little bit as far as the products we offer. You can change. So we will be offering a lot of the products to comply with the new ordinance that takes effect next year. We are starting to work on a lot of the BPI certifications for our products. It's a little bit of a process, but kind of getting through it. I know the biggest challenge is to get rid of PFAS and hinge trays, and everybody asks me the same question: what's it going to cost me? What's the price? What's this? What's that? That seems to be the go-to. And we're trying to get pricing, competitive to what is available now, but there are going to be some increases, but we can talk with you guys a little bit more on that. Or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We can go to the next one. This is a big one. I think Kaylee, you talked a little bit about this, the PLA part and PLA cold cups specifically. We will be carrying compostable paper PLA lined cups. And the cost is actually a lot lower than PLA, especially recently. There's been a lot of increases on a lot of the compostables, especially PLA, but paper's been okay. So, that might be a little bit of a break for a lot of businesses, especially on the pricing side of it. And then this is another big one that we always get, which is cutlery. So since CPLA is not going to be allowed, there is a lot of cutlery out there that's PSM, and that I don't think that's ever been allowed. I think Kaylee can probably mention that. But I mean, it has to do, I think, a lot to do with education for people. During 2020, I mean, it seems like it's been like a free for all. Everybody's kind of going back to plastic, kind of getting away from a lot of the compostables. But we will be offering, wooden cutlery, whether it's bamboo or just wooden. We do have samples, pricing availability. As far as pricing goes, and this is another big thing, it's actually in line or even lower than CPLA for bamboo pricing. So, that's another thing too. And then as far as products that we offer currently for the current ordinance that is still in effect, we have everything that you guys possibly need. There's new products coming online every day. Compostables are getting really popular. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. We might not have it in stock, but we could probably, find a solution, especially a lot of restaurants. I always see a lot of questions about, as far as like certain products aren't working for what we do, but, we can probably figure something out.
Great. Thanks, Alonso. Is that all you've got?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let's see. Now I'd like to welcome Matt Cloutier from Ledyard. Oh, there's your last slide, Alonso. There we go. So Matt, if you're there, would you like to talk about Performance Foods Ledyard?
I am here, and thank you, Kaylee. Good morning, everyone. This has been a great call, very informative, and great job to Kaylee for putting this together. My name is Matt Cloutier, and I am the non-food specialist at PFG Ledyard. And for those of you who aren't familiar with PFG, we're one of the largest broadline food distributors in the United States. I think we're servicing probably right around 95 to 100 markets right now. That number changes daily. But in 2010, PFG actually purchased a family-owned food distribution business in Santa Cruz, called Ledyard Food Service. And that's what created PFG Ledyard. And the Ledyard Food Service business had serviced the Santa Cruz market since 1929. So we've been in the Santa Cruz market for quite a while. And we have a very friendly competition with Coast Paper. So it's good to have Alonzo on the call as well. Businesses, we're all here to just support the local community and drive good environmental decisions. So my role with the company as a non-food specialist, we have a non-food specialist at every one of our opcos across the United States. And my sole role and function is to work every day with customers, trying to find solutions that meet their needs. And what we're finding more and more across the United States, but definitely in Santa Cruz and Northern California, is part of finding solutions is working to have less environmental impact, which is why we're here today. Next slide, please. So like Alonzo and Coast Paper, we're going to carry, all the popular and innovative brands to help support environmentally conscious buying decisions. The most popular brands out there, World Centric is obviously an industry leader. Eco Products, another one with great brand awareness, and then Greenware. Greenware is probably the lesser of the three in terms of brand awareness. They do a lot with PLA, but they are entering the fiber market as well. Full disclosure, PFG does have a strategic partnership with World Centric based on shared corporate values. And I'm not sure if everyone's aware of this or not, but World Centric actually donates on an annual basis. They donate a fixed portion of their profits for environmental and educational causes. And it's a fairly large percentage, and they do some really good stuff with that money. So if you're ever talking to the World Centric rep in your area, definitely engage them in that conversation. It's something they're very proud of, and we're proud to offer their products for that reason as well. So we're here today to talk about the city ordinances. And as we're talking with customers, and again, Alonzo and I are probably having similar conversations, it can be a lot for them to digest, a lot of change. So something I'm encouraging customers to do is just start with the easy stuff. And the easiest thing, again, that Alonzo already alluded to was get rid of your PLA cups. We're finding that by converting from PLA cups to compostable paper cups, it can reduce your cost by 25%. Those PLA cups are expensive. So that's some low-hanging fruit. You can reduce your costs and offer a better product. Compostable paper cups also have a sip style lid. And I don't know if you can see the lid in the bottom right-hand corner, but that larger sip hole reduces the need for a straw. So again, dropping your costs, now you're not providing straws anymore, and customers will appreciate that. Another option to have a quick and significant impact is switching from PLA portion cups to fiber portion cups. We found that this is cost neutral. They cost about the same amount of money. And those fiber portion cups are actually becoming more and more appealing with end customers. Next slide, please. So we can talk about products. We could go on for hours about the products. But as a business owner, something you definitely want to acknowledge is that your customers do care. Customers in our area tend to be hyper-focused on the environment and particularly waste. And we're hearing from more and more end customers, and I can say this personally, that everyone's just sick of throwing things away, sick of throwing out the napkins, sick of throwing out the plastic cutlery, the condiment packets, the things I didn't even need because I was taking the food home to my house. to eat, but they're being put in the bag anyway. And people are tired of that, and they recognize that waste. And I make buying decisions on where I'm going to eat, sometimes based on that fact. So when we talk about a business's bottom line, be cognizant that people are aware of waste, and putting in the cutlery, the napkins, the condiment packets that they're not even asking for can create an unpleasant customer experience. I did want to add that I dug up an old Darden restaurant survey. Darden's the owner of Red Lobster, Olive Garden, a pretty big national restaurant chain. They did a 2019 survey because they were looking at their different substrates for packaging. And it was interesting. They found that 88% of customers preferred paper versus plastic products from a texture standpoint. So drinking cups were the main component of that survey. But the point is people prefer paper or paper equivalents, fiber, for example. So you can reduce your costs and provide a better customer experience and be less environmentally impactful. So all good reasons to consider these options. And then lastly, don't forget about your china and your reusables. PFG and I believe Coast sells china and reusables as well. You know, disposable tableware probably served a purpose over the last 14 months. We can all agree on that, but it has created a lot of waste. All that stuff gets thrown away. The boxes that it comes in every week all gets thrown away. Just a lot of waste. And again, don't forget your china. And we all know that reusable tableware is more cost effective and creates a better customer experience. So it saves you money and the customer's happier. So there you go. Next slide. Okay. So I saw some great questions come in on the chat room.
Yeah,
so
we'll be getting to
those.
those.
My contact information is here. Please reach out if you need samples or if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. You had some really great perspectives there from both customer and restaurant end. So really appreciate your time there. And yep, as he just said, here are contacts for both of those vendors that we just heard from. So, you know, as you can see, we're working as a team here and trying to support everybody involved. So thanks for that input from both of you. So now, lastly, I would like to turn it over to Amanda to walk us through any questions we have received from the audience. So I'd also like to welcome back all of our panelists to help answer these questions if they apply. So Amanda, what do we got?
Yes, thank you so much, Kaylee. We've got a ton of great questions. And actually, this one's probably for either Alonzo and or Matt. There was a question about wanting to use fiber-based to-go containers that can hold sauces and liquids, but there's been some challenge around finding them because the fiber-based containers absorb liquids and sauces and often leak. Wondering if you have a product solution to that that you could share with us.
That's a really hard question, so I'm going to let Alonzo answer that one.
Okay.
Is that allowed? And I'll chime in as well, but that's the biggest challenge in the market. Alonzo, if you don't mind leading, I'll piggyback.
That one I would agree with you. That is the biggest challenge for sure, and that's probably a question that we get nonstop. I mean, I would just kind of I always start with, you know, just kind of try and see how it works. Don't go in with the attitude that it's not going to work. Just kind of try and use it because, you know, most of the time you'll find out that it'll work just fine. But, you know, and depending on the brands too, some brands make much better quality fiber products than other brands. And that's also a big deal. You know, there's a lot of fiber-based products, and I mean, I would say start with brands. I mean, and like you said, World Centric, definitely a leader in eco products. I would start there if you have a lot of trouble with products, because they definitely make better products than a lot of the other stuff available.
And I would just add to Alonzo's comments, he brought up a really good point. You're not going to troubleshoot good alternative products by looking at pictures online. If you have an idea or want to look for solutions, contact me, contact Alonzo, whoever you're working with. You've got to get samples, and you got to get 5 or 10 samples. You got to put the product in the container or the portion cup. You got to let it sit. This is a testing process. People always want an answer like, will this work? And this is relatively new territory. We do have great solutions. I find that sauces work really well in world-centric fiber portion cups. But me saying that, the customer get samples. These vendors all want to, these manufacturers all want to give away samples of their products so that you can test them. And they'll have them to you in 2 days, and they'll send you 5, 10, 20 samples, whatever you need. But get recommendations from someone like Alonzo or myself, and then get samples and test them out.
Great. And Leslie, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
No, they both just covered it. I was going to say that, in writing this ordinance, we were really cognizant of safety and performance. And so there are allowable exceptions for hot beverages or hot foods that if a BPI certified PFAS-free container has a BPI PLA lining, then an exception may be made for that. But again, we definitely are keeping safety in mind. And I just also would like to say that, if we recall back to the day of when the straw changes first happened, Aardvark Straws, probably was so happy they had the corner on the market. And now there's lots and lots of vendors in on this. And as both Matt and Alonzo said, this is a developing industry, and it's hard. Santa Cruz is often the pioneer and the leader in some of these efforts to kind of meet that demand, but it's happening quickly and material is out there. But if you're having trouble, again, we're here to work with you. And as Matt said, ask for samples, and it's not as cut and dry as you're compliant, you're not compliant. It's a journey. Let's get through it together.
Thanks, Leslie. And I think that also responds to some of the other questions we received around, well, what if there aren't products that I need that sort of meet the ordinance, and the questions around concerns around cost. I think to your point, that we're seeing more products come on, and that as more vendors enter the market, that costs will be brought down as well. Thank you for that. We did have a question around food waste and compostable, how that will be picked up, who's responsible for that, and where is the city's program with the compost program?
Mm-hmm. So I think I'll probably go ahead and take that. So we we have a pilot going right now of about 35 food related businesses that we're currently collecting their food scraps. Excuse me. We are collecting that material, and currently we take it to Demio Lane, and it gets put through a pre-processor. Then it gets taken over the hill to Santa Clara in a vessel vehicle, and it gets turned into animal feed. The state legislation that Kaylee pointed out in her earlier slides is legislation that generators, which is you, the business, is required to comply with, but we as the jurisdiction, the municipality, we have to make sure that you're compliant. So we're here to help you do that. So we'll be expanding our food waste collection to all businesses, and that rolls into that SB 1383. And so now it's just the piece of getting the infrastructure ready, getting the carts ready. My team is working on information to roll out to businesses to make sure that we've got everyone on board, and also, how to use those systems, because you as a business owner, that sometimes it's challenging to just get with staff turnover to make sure people are recycling properly and getting the right stuff in there. So now we recognize that when we add another bin to that mix, it's going to be another piece. But again, our team, the title is Education and Outreach, and we're here to work with you. Just reach out to us.
Thank you, Leslie. And actually, this is probably a good question to throw over to Kaylee, just on that education side. So what is the city doing around educating customers and restaurant patrons so that they have clear expectations when they're going into businesses and may kind of come up with these ordinance changes?
Sure. Yeah. So for customer facing, hopefully that cling that we mentioned earlier will be sort of a helpful alert in understanding the skip the stuff sort of model that we're hoping to promote. So understanding why it's important to skip the stuff and that we really don't need it in the first place. And then, just keeping that environmental perception as the forefront for restaurants, and speaking with restaurants as well as we move through this to let them know and communicate that they want to increase the use of reusables and promoting that actually and making that part of their business model, posting to bring cups and encourage more durables.
Great. Thank you so much, Kaylee. So looking at more questions in the chat, there was a lot of questions around COVID safety, concerns about customers bringing in dirty cups, and wanting to get some direction around that. We did see someone in the chat that said businesses always have the right to refuse dirty cups. So that's a good thing to have in there as well. And Leslie did talk about this in a lot of her presentation. One of the kind of follow-up questions was if after 2022, we're still seeing some concerns around the pandemic. Is there going to be some flexibility around allowing permanent cups at that time as well? And that might be asking you to use your crystal ball a little bit, but I will say, not to speak on behalf of Leslie and Kaylee, but I know the city's really wanting to be flexible, and that was part of the reason we looked at the ordinance again this year. And so the goal is really to work with businesses and also meet some of our environmental and sustainability goals. Do either of you have something you'd like to add to that?
No, I think that's really the important part. This, as I mentioned, the city we've had a history of building on these ordinances. And I think it's spring, it's starting to feel like things are really getting better with COVID, and hopefully we won't have a big backslide. But that really was the goal in asking for an entire year of delay of the implementation of the changes to this ordinance, because we really felt like businesses didn't have a fair chance to get going and with reduced staffing during furloughs. So we've been very active. And just to address your other question, Amanda, so reaching out to customers and businesses through social media, letter writing, personal direct outreach, this webinar, it'll be an ongoing effort, and just an opportunity to revisit that there has been a current ordinance in place. And so that 2017, 2020, this is also sort of a self-check for businesses to make sure that they're at least to that point. And then our follow-up is just customer awareness. And so they let us know, hey, I was in this business. They seem to be a little confused still. And then we reach out to them, because the goal is not to punish businesses. We want to help them, and we want to make them, sure they have the tools and the information they need to get on the right track.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Leslie. And one of the questions in the chat, which I think is a good tee up, is, will you be sending out the recording of this presentation to participants? They'd like to share it with their team. Kaylee, where will they be able to find this information?
Yeah, certainly. We're recording both in English and Spanish, as I mentioned before, and then we will post it up on our website, and then, of course, have it available if anyone wants it personally. Feel free to, again, email me. But yeah, we will have it on our cityofsantacruz.com/to-go-where page. And I will post that up in just a moment, some more resources for everybody to see, but it will certainly be available. Please share.
Excellent. Thank you, Kaylee. And I know we're getting to the end of our time, so we have just a couple more questions here. We do have a question in the chat box around the city providing signage. You did mention there's going to be that sort of window sign that the city will be providing to help get the word out, especially the requirement for to-go cups could be met with hostility. Yes, and certainly I know that's what Leslie was speaking to, of wanting to get the word out so that there's clear expectations. And I think there's some great opportunities for us to partner with some of the downtown organizations to help get the word out on that as well. The last question it looks like we have time for is around use of durable plateware, and that they have moved away from that because of theft and customers throwing away that reusable flatware. And they're asking about some recommendations around that. This one might be a question you have to think about and come back on. I don't know if either of you have come up with that or have necessarily solutions around that, but that looks like a question that's coming up as well.
I would just say that we definitely have information to a couple of these organizations, Beyond Plastics, Clean Water Action Network, Upstream Solutions. Those roll into the model in some of the earlier slides that Kaylee showed. Even with loss, that it outweighs how much you have, and we can work with businesses if we do have a specific business and whoever that business is that it chimed in on that. Please reach out to us directly. We can help you create some strategies or look at what is the one thing that maybe there's just one magic thing that can change that will help cut down on that theft or that loss.
Wow, that's amazing. So it sounds like really the biggest piece of advice we can provide is if you have questions, reach out. Leslie and Kaylee are very knowledgeable in this area and excited and enthusiastic and creative problem solvers to help you kind of come up with solutions and answer your questions. And with that, we've run out of time, so I'm going to hand it back over to Kaylee.
Great, thank you, Amanda. So yep, perfect segue into our page of resources, from anything to recycling questions, this to-go-ware ordinance, food waste, any and all. So you can feel free to shoot me an email personally, go to any of these web pages and look up information that may be pertinent to your questions. So with that, I want to really thank all for being here, and thanks again for your environmental consideration for our beautiful city of Santa Cruz. And I hope to see you out there soon. So have a lovely day. Thanks all.